Good evening. On behalf of the Kennedy School and the Institute of Politics, I'd like to welcome you here tonight. I'm Joe Nye, the Dean of the school, and I should say this event this evening has very special significance for us because Yitzhak Rabin was scheduled to speak here on November 15th, just 11 days after he was assassinated in Tel Aviv. On that date, we held a forum event which proved to be a very moving memorial to the Prime Minister. We're very pleased and greatly honored that Mrs. Rabin has come in his stead tonight. To introduce her, let me introduce Neil Rudenstine, the president of Harvard University. President Rudenstine earned his bachelor's degree from Princeton in 1956, went to Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar, came back to Harvard and earned his PhD and joined the English department here, and then was lured back to Princeton in 1968, where he rose to the position of provost, then joined the Mellon Foundation as vice president. But I'm pleased to say that we lured him back to Harvard, and he is now our 26th president, starting in 1991, and is a man who will be known as the president who thought of Harvard as a university. I'm pleased to introduce to you Neil Rudenstine.
Good evening. It's an honor for me and for Harvard to welcome Lea Rabin, a remarkable woman of extraordinary dignity and strength of spirit, who has served her country through times of deep conflict and tragedy. Just a few short weeks ago, as Dean Nye said, in November, we were to have welcomed Prime Minister Rabin to this same forum. We mourn with you, Mrs. Rabin, for the terrible loss of your husband, and all of us grieve with so many people in Israel and around the world, for we have been deprived, utterly senselessly, of a formidable person and statesman. There are never enough leaders who are courageous and yet also human in their sensitivities, strong, even unyielding when necessary, but also willing to grasp historic opportunities, transform difficult situations, and create a new vision of what may be possible. Yitzhak Rabin was such a person. He became a symbol of hope, not only for the people of Israel, but for all those who cherish peace. His example is one that we shall never forget. Mrs. Rabin has long worked on behalf of the nation and the people of Israel with passionate resolve. She has been a friend to the young who are in need, especially through her long service as president of the Israeli Association for Autistic Children. She has dedicated herself to many charitable causes, including, very importantly, the Sheba Medical Center, as well as the Tel Aviv Museum. And in these past few very difficult months, she has in so many ways demonstrated her powerful and tireless commitment to building on her husband's important legacy, and she has become an inspiration to countless people throughout the world. In recent days, an already difficult and dangerous situation in Israel and the Middle East has become infinitely more hazardous. More tragedy, more violence, more loss of precious human lives have placed so much at risk, especially at this uncertain and turbulent time. Mrs. Rabin, we are very grateful to have you with us, and more than ever, we are determined to honor you and the memory of your husband and your joint commitment to the cause of peace. In that spirit, I want to report tonight that several friends of the university have stepped forward on their own to help create and support a new fund at Harvard University, the Yitzhak Rabin Endowment for Peace. It will support student fellowships, important research, and other activities devoted to advancing peace around the world, but especially in the Middle East. And we hope that it will help to keep the spirit and hope of Yitzhak Rabin present among us as a living memorial to all that he achieved. Mrs. Rabin, we're privileged to have you with us tonight. We welcome you to Harvard.
I want to thank President and Mrs. Rudenstine, Dean Joseph Nye of the Kennedy School, and Heather Campion, Director of the Forum, faculty, students, friends who are here tonight. I've spent the day, a very stormy, snowy day here in Harvard, and I can only say how very impressed I was with all that I sensed and saw, and it's a great inspiration to be here with you tonight. On November 4th, at 11:15 p.m., Mr. Eitan Haber announced to the nation and the world media, the Prime Minister and Minister of Defense Yitzhak Rabin is dead. He was shot by bullets coming down the stairs after the rally at the Kikar Malchei Israel. We, myself, our children, Mr. Peres, Mr. Weizmann, other members of the government, and many, many friends were in a room in the hospital, knowing already there was little hope to save his life, expecting the worst. Yitzhak Rabin is dead. We went to kiss him the last time and left the hospital. Just 2 hours before, you could see him on the platform in front of the 200,000 who were there for the first time after a long period of silence, singing, dancing, and yelling. We want peace. Rabin, Peres, we love you. Rabin, Rabin. Yitzhak could hardly believe this sight, this joy, this love pouring at him, at the peace. He was a happy man. He said yes to peace, no to violence. Ken la shalom, lo la alimut. And he sang the song of peace. He was hugged and loved. He hugged and loved and left. Rabin, Rabin, we love you. Lea, take good care of him. And I said, I'm trying my best. Last word before I heard the bullets, saw him falling, and did not yet believe he was even hurt. This sight will forever stay with me, like you stop a video and on a certain point, and there it is forever. I did not know, but he was shot and clinically dead a few seconds later in the car. Then the unprecedented shock, an outpour of emotion of the people of Israel and all the countries of the world. All the tears, all the candles, all the flowers, and all the graffiti, and all the piles of letters which express the love and sorrow and sense of horrible loss. All the long lines of people going around the casket, all day, all night, packing the streets of Jerusalem during the funeral, filling the square, Kikar Malchei Israel, day and night, streaming into our street, trying to get to our house. 87 world leaders arriving to the funeral to pay him the last tribute and respect. What an amazing, unprecedented response to the death of a leader. How can we try to understand this outpour of love, sorrow, sense of loss of all these millions who felt the loss of him, who were so desperate, who cried day and night and said time and again, not since they lost their own son, their own father, did they feel this way. What is the myth of this universal sorrow and sense of loss? What was Yitzhak Rabin for his nation? What have we all really lost? When trying to analyze this, he certainly was different things to different people. The image of father, grandfather, friend, son, leader. Why? They all trusted him. Him we could trust, they said. He will protect us. He will bring peace. Him we believe what he said because he never said anything he didn't absolutely believe in, wasn't absolutely convinced in. They also sensed his absolute devotion and dedication to his people. Nothing else was on his mind ever, except doing the utmost in his capacity so that the people could sleep better at night, live better at day, and have hope for peace and a better future. He, at his age, with all the accumulated experience and the unbelievable strength and stamina, never for a moment stopping, never for a moment showing fatigue and alert, and holding his hand on the pulse of all the priorities he said he would change, and indeed did. Building roads, housing projects, education, economy and commerce, tourism and medical care, he dealt with them all. With equal enthusiasm, energy and conviction, as if he was in a hurry, as if he knew, but he really did not guess his time was short. He was just in a hurry to do and achieve, and said, I have a purpose. I have to get there. I have no time to spare. His heart and his mind were there all the time, for the people, for the country. A leader, a giant. A warrior. He really never was a warrior in the true sense. He believed in the power and strength of the Israel Defense Forces, devoted many years of his life to help build it into an army that will forever defend Israel, that will never ever be defeated on the battlefield. He proved the ultimate of its immense strength and sophisticated strategy in the Six-Day War, after which he asked to become ambassador to Washington. I'm going to try to trade this immense victory into prospects for peace. Only Washington can help us do it. The army and his military years were for him a means, not a goal. The goal was that the Jewish state, the Jewish homeland, will survive in the Middle East and will finally be accepted by its neighbors. He saw himself, and was indeed a privileged man, to see his dream unfolding, to see peace in the Middle East turning into a reality. Shaking the hand of Yasser Arafat on the White House lawn, signing the declaration of the DOP, the Declaration of Principle, signing a peace agreement with the King of Jordan, and again at the White House, signing Oslo B agreement, when he said, look at this stage. Look at how far we have gone. There were President Mubarak, King Hussein, Yasser Arafat, and Yitzhak Rabin sitting together, one next to the other, with President Clinton, surrounded by foreign ministers of all the countries involved in the peace process. Oslo B was signed. The train of peace was now moving into a very significant station. The Palestinians are finally getting their autonomy, running their own lives. The Israeli forces are moving out of the densely populated Arab cities. You can see the happiness in their faces, both the Palestinians as well as our army boys. At long last, we stop being their rulers, running their lives. It has been too long and too painful for all. Putting Oslo B agreement before the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, Yitzhak said, when we came back to our ancient homeland, it wasn't empty. There were Palestinians who fought against us for 100 years of riots and bloodshed. Thousands were killed on both sides, fighting over the same piece of land. Now, after endless wars and battles, we rule over 2 million Palestinians by the Israeli Defense Forces and managing their life by a civil administration. This is not a solution for peace. We can continue fighting, we can continue to kill and get killed, but we can also try and stop the unending circle of bloodshed. We can give peace a chance. This government has decided to do it. The past week has unfortunately presented a setback to the peace process, as 4 horrible Hamas suicidal terror actions took the toll of about 60 innocent Israeli citizens and 2 young Americans. You can, of course, ask all the legitimate questions. Is that peace? Is that what peace has in store for us or for you? How can we cope with this kind of terror? When and where is the answer? My answer, and unfortunately I cannot ask Yitzhak anymore, which of course I would have always done. I always asked him and always got an answer. Of course, measures have to and will be taken to try and stop these suicidal terrors. And there are ways and measures to at least try and stop them. The incredible amount of financial support to the Hamas has to be stopped. This fundamental movement is growing like mushrooms, even here in this country, presenting a true threat. But I also believe we in Israel have to demonstrate our strength and determination by going back to normal life, by overcoming the pain and panic. Do we want to give them the satisfaction that they can interfere in our normal life? I do hope that in a few days we will see life coming back to normal. This has to be our answer, our way of fighting back. We have lived through days of serious threat to our existence, to the survival of Israel. We have known how to cope with the pain of loss of life. We have buried our dead, mourned for them, and continued in our struggle. There is no alternative to the peace process. We are on the way, and these obstacles have to be overcome. The train of peace will go on and arrive to its destiny. Those who try to stop it should not be given a chance. Having lived with Yitzhak all my life, I know that this would have been his conviction. Don't give in. Don't stop. Just go on. When asked, what is my agenda? This is my agenda, to try and speak for him, explain him, carry on his legacy, and also create the Yitzhak Rabin Center in Israel. Today I was here learning about another hero's assassinated legacy and center, the Kennedy Center, the Kennedy Library. Created Rabin Center in Israel. It will have a library with a museum and a center for studies. I very much hope it will carry the ideas and goals of my husband, the same way the Kennedy School's Institute of Political and John F. Kennedy Library keep alive the ideals and goals of President John F. Kennedy. I'm very honored to be with you here tonight. Thank you for having invited me and given me this most prestigious platform. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Rabin has graciously said that she will be willing to answer some questions. I believe there are 4 microphones in the hall, and I will start on this side and make my way around. And I don't see anybody at this microphone. Is there someone up there? Yes.
Mrs. Rabin, in the wake of the recent bombings, some Israelis appear to have despaired, and support for the Labor Party appears to be dwindling a bit among some sectors of the Israeli population. The world is watching this with a lot of interest, and I'm curious what you think should happen or will happen should the Likud prevail in the next election, and what that will mean for the peace process.
Do you know the name of our national hymn? It's Hatikva. That means hope. And I and us shouldn't lose hope. And as I said in my speech, we shall continue. And we have to be strong. And this will be the answer, and the unwavering answer to what they're trying to do to our peace process. They're trying to disrupt it. We shall not let them. And to your question, what will happen if the Likud wins? I rather don't answer this hypothetical question.
Mrs. Rabin, one of the most touching moments following the tragic assassination of your husband was a speech made by your granddaughter, Noah Ben-Artzi. And I think maybe against her will, she came to be a spokesperson for the younger generation, for my generation. I was wondering, when you look to the generation of your granddaughter, are you optimistic about the future that that generation holds for the peace process in Israel?
In the same manner that I asked the former question, I believe the train of peace is going to its final destination, and there will be peace despite the obstacles. And this is the only answer and the only hope for our future generation. There will be peace. It's in the interest of both peoples, the Palestinians and the Israelis, and the only solution. And there is no alternative. And it's in the interest of Chairman Arafat as much as in the interest of us. And if people ask, is he really doing his best? I believe he is doing the best he can, because he wants the peace process as much as us. The first time there is a chance for the people of the Palestinian people to run their own life, to entertain some kind of independence. Do you think they want to lose that? So this is the answer, and I believe that for our younger generation there is a lot of hope, and there is a much better future, and there will be no more war.
Good evening, Mrs. Rabin. Right here.
Hi.
Hi. Good evening. Welcome to Harvard. My name is Peter Weinman. I'm a student here at the Kennedy School. What do you say to those members of the Jewish community who would criticize you for receiving a Shiva call by Yasser Arafat?
I had this question before, and I said that the Shiva call of Yasser Arafat presented exactly what I just mentioned. It presented the hope. It presented exactly the symbol of what my husband has achieved in his recent years. The handshake was a symbolic beginning. Then there was the continuation of the Cairo agreement, and then Oslo B. We were moving from one agreement to another, and all this was unfolding and materializing into a real peace accord between these two people that have been in conflict for 100 years. So when Yasser Arafat came to our apartment for Shiva call during the Shiva, it presented exactly that, the symbol that we do have hope, that Chairman Arafat found the reason, found it necessarily to come and pay his respect. He came in as a real friend, as a member of the family. He was very, very friendly and very warm. He kissed the children, he kissed me. He said, "You are my family, you are my sister." And I must say that all of us there present, it was just us, the family, and a few, very few friends, we were amazed at this visit, at this gathering. It was the most unexpected thing that happened, and among many, many, many others, I feel that if I told Yitzhak, he would say, no, it's not true. And if I told Yitzhak that I was invited to speak at the Kennedy School, he also would have expressed his doubts.
My question is along the same theme. For the last couple of years, you've had many opportunities to meet with Yasser Arafat. How would you personally evaluate him as an individual in terms of his leadership of his people, his integrity, his responsibility, how he's changed from a terrorist to a person who now jails terrorists?
First of all, I'm quoting Yitzhak, who used to say, "You make peace with enemies, not with friends." Second, once you meet a person, you sort of unravel the qualities, the features. All of us are human beings, so is he. None of us is perfect. We are not, no one is perfect, nor is he, nor am I, nor are you. We are not perfect. But what I want to say about Yasser Arafat, what I discovered, he is very, very authentic. There is something very authentic about him. There is something about him that says, this is me, take me or leave me. And there is a great charm and a great warmth, as I just described, and he disarmed us with his charm and the way he came into our house. So I must say I rather got to like and appreciate him, which on the 13th of September on the White House lawn would have seemed like miraculous to me. So there are things that happen that you don't expect, and they do happen. And we, in the 3.5 past years, I say we, Yitzhak, may rest in peace, and myself, have lived through the most unbelievable events. This is one of them.
Mrs. Rabin, I'm a freshman at Harvard University as an undergrad, and I ask you this question because just having come here, me along with many of my classmates have a very idealistic sense of where we would like the world to go with peace. And peace is not just a game of leaders, but it's a game of the population at large. And so I ask this question because we talk of what leaders do to make peace in the world, but what can I do as like an idealistic Harvard freshman who's going to make big strides in my career and I want to move in this direction of contributing to world peace. Where do we go into international peace? Where do we fit in the puzzle?
Where are you?
I'm here. And the reason I say that is here at the IOP we're driven by the idealism of our national leaders like John F. Kennedy, but we're also driven by the idealism of international leaders like Isaac Rabin and myself from my country, Gandhi. And so when I ask you, I want to know what direction or advice would you give, or would Isaac Rabin himself give, to moving towards making our own steps in international peace?
Are you American?
I am American, yes.
Okay. I'd like to answer your question. I think that, and I think I made it clear, or maybe not in this speech and in another, without the United States of America, without the support, the generosity, the understanding, the tactfulness of American leaders, I don't think we could have ever achieved peace in the Middle East. It's due to the American people, representatives, and administrations that have really helped us over the years, when we turn to them time and again, to be there for us in bringing the sides of the conflict together. And it was always done with the greatest generosity and tact and helpfulness. And let me tell you the story about Yasser Arafat again. He was asked in my living room, what did you really feel? My husband was asked so often, but this time he was asked, what did you really feel when you were shaking Yitzhak Rabin's hand? He avoided the answer, and he said, I said to Rabin, this is a very important moment in our life. And Rabin said, yes, it is an important moment in our life. And then I turned to President Clinton, and I said, President Clinton, it is you. It's now you who can bring us together. It's your support that will eventually build our peace accord. 10 minutes later, there was a telephone, and it was President Clinton calling me just to say hello and how I was. And I said, President Clinton, Yasser Arafat is here, and he just mentioned you. And he mentioned your immense role in our peace process. So what I want to say is that if you, as a young American, have a role to play, you know that you belong to a people that are immensely, immensely wonderful, generous, and strong in helping parts to a conflict in the world to get together and solve their problem. In the Middle East, it has worked very, very well, and we are forever, ever grateful to the administration, to the people on Capitol Hill, to the people of America for having supported us in the Middle East to solve our conflicts and bring our sides together. It was the same with Egypt, it happened with Jordan, and it happens now with the Palestinians. I don't believe, and I told you in my speech that after the Six-Day War, Yitzhak wanted to go to Washington, saying only Washington can deliver us, help us with the peace process. He had a vision in '67. It proved to be right time and again. Without the support, without the generosity and the tactfulness of the United States, we could have never, ever achieved it. So as a young American, you have, first of all, to be very proud, and second, you can play a role in the continuation of the peace process in the Middle East. Thank you.
Mrs. Rabin, I want to thank you very much for coming. My question also relates to Yasser Arafat. And many Americans I know also shared the hope and optimism that Yasser Arafat came to represent with Oslo and with paying the Shiva call. And many people came to question that in the last 10 days with the bombings and thought that Yasser Arafat could have done more to stop Hamas. Steps were taken yesterday, and people wondered why weren't those steps taken earlier. there's concern now that steps that are taken are being taken to show the world media, and that perhaps those actions won't be continued in the future. And I would like to ask what your personal confidence is in Yasser Arafat's commitment to crushing Hamas.
I said before, he is as committed as us and as interested in us, like us, in the peace process. And why would he not try and do his best to control the Hamas? We have in Hebrew an expression, to open the mouth to the Satan, לפתוח את הפה לשטן. Before this all happened, I said, look at the Palestinians. They are getting organized faster and better than we expected. They already control the Hamas more than we expected, because there were 2 or 3 stories that they really managed to stop them. And then this all happened, so I opened my mouth to the Satan, and I don't want to do it again. But I do hope that, yes, he's interested, yes, he will do his best, yes, it is in his interest to stop these terror activities. I trust him fully that he wants to do it, and as much as it is in his control. Look, it's not 100% in our control, and we have our Shabak, and we have our Mossad, and we have long-time existing operations, security operations, and still we haven't managed to stop them all the time. So why can we expect it from them who have just started getting their act together? So we have to have patience, and we have to have hope, and we have to be strong, and we have to believe. And this is our secret weapon of the Jewish people that have believed for 2,000 years that one day will come and we will go back to the Jewish homeland. 2,000 years later, we came back to the Jewish homeland. 2,000 years later, as a Jewish people, fully fledged Jewish people, we built the Jewish homeland, and in 50 years, I think we built a model state despite all the odds. So if we don't stick to our tikva, to our hope, what are we all about? This is our basic, fundamental thing that we have to live with. If we lived with it for 2,000 years, why should we lose our hope now? We have to go on and hope that despite the obstacles, despite the hardship, despite the loss of life, which is hard, and I'm speaking now in the name of myself and my family, and we have lost our dearest and greatest one. So I know what loss is, and it's easy to pass a judgment, say, live with your loss and go ahead, but I am living with my loss, and I haven't lost hope. So I can say it fully, with full conviction and full belief. Don't lose hope. We shall overcome also this crisis, and we shall get there with our wagon to peace.
We have time for just one last question.
Shalom, Mrs. Rabin.
Shalom.
Before Prime Minister Rabin was supposed to speak here last time, I had prepared the question. I couldn't ask the question, so perhaps you can answer for him and for yourself tonight, if you can. You mentioned that Prime Minister Rabin meant different things to different people, and I think that's quite true. For me, Mr. Rabin's for years symbolized terror, oppression, and occupation. And I think it's remarkable today that really in his death he does symbolize a hope of peace. And I think that change has been quite remarkable for myself personally. I think for many Palestinians around this world.
Are you a Palestinian?
Yes, I am. My question is, which I would like to ask Mr. Rabin, which is beyond all the rhetoric and
Try to ask him.
I wish. Beyond all the rhetoric and the politics, did he believe in the right of Palestinians to statehood? And I'm not talking about limited autonomy or certain more limited measures. I'm really talking about a fully fledged Palestinian state, side to side next to Israel. And if you can answer for yourself or for the late Prime Minister Rabin, I'll greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Look, first of all, it symbolized for you terror and suppression of the Palestinian people. Now this, you're referring to the time of the Intifada. It was a very difficult time for all of us, for you and for us. And believe me, he didn't enjoy it and was not the type of a suppressor and was certainly not the type of a terrorist. It was just that he wasn't going to get yielding to terror or to force attempted against us. And he said that the solution will have to be political and not by force, because by force he always said, by force you will gain nothing. We have to sit down and talk. And thank God the day came, the opportunity came, and we shall not now be here to analyze why did the opportunity come. It so happened historically that the opportunity came. And there was the day that Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak shook hands on the White House lawn. And for him, it was a great day, because this is when he thought that he's on his way to a solution, rather fighting against children that are throwing stones and spitting at our soldiers, which was a very, very embarrassing and very, very difficult situation for us and for our army. And thank God this scene is over. If you ask me about the Palestinian state, and I know this is on your mind, you will certainly not get the answer from me, because we are moving from phase to phase. And we are now have completed phase 2, which is Oslo B, and whatever will happen after, I cannot answer you. It is not in my capacity. There are those who continue Yitzhak's responsibility and commitments, and whatever the final solution is going to be, I shall certainly not answer you this question here, because I'm certainly not entitled to do it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.